Out with a huge bombshell, new report on the Uranium One scandal tonight. Sarah's reporting, quote, the informant who spent years gathering information on the Russia energy and uranium market industry for the FBI met staff members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, House Oversight, and the House Intelligence Committees. Well, that all happened earlier today, where he gave explosive testimony on his years as an undercover informant, providing information to the FBI on Russian criminal networks that are operating right inside the United States. He also contends in his testimony and his written briefs that the FBI, that Russia attempted to hide their ongoing aid to help sustain Iran's nuclear industry. At the time, the Obama administration, in fact, approved the sale of 20% of U.S. Uranium mining rights to Russia. Now, we did reach out to Hillary Clinton for a statement. Her spokesman called the informant, quote, a charade and a distraction.
Well, I think that's important. But what's even more important, Sean, is that they knew that the Russians were still double dealing with Iran. This was the biggest concern for the Republicans at that time. This is the reason why they didn't want the Uranium One deal to go through. And they were screaming mad about it. But everybody tried to assure everyone that Russia was no longer, and the Russians themselves, they were lying about it, that they were no longer dealing with Iran on their nuclear reactors. But at that time, William Campbell, the informant, was actually providing information, and this was months before, that Russia was still dealing with Iran. And this is a major issue. So despite all the information that he provided to the FBI and to their counterintelligence unit, the Obama administration chose to ignore that and move forward with the sale of Uranium One, which was the Canadian mining company.
Let me take you back to 2005, because that's when this really started, the Russian plan to take over U.S. uranium piles. That was when, guess what, Bill Clinton, former president, and his multi-gazillionaire friend, Frank Giuffra, traveled to Kazakhstan and bestowed all kinds of praises on the dictator there, and ended up, oh my surprise, with uranium mining rights. And it was then, my client is told, that the Russians began to plan strategically how they could take over uranium, particularly in the United States. And one of the key elements of that plan was to get the CFIUS approval to buy Uranium One. It all started in 2005. He's supposed to be working with, and he's telling them about the strategic plan of Putin to take over the uranium industry. And he's writing up these reports and telling them about it. He's also telling them about the corruption in these companies. All of them are, they're all the one company, even though they have different names. But they were so confident, Sean, the Russians, that they told Mr. Campbell that with the Clintons' help, it was a shoo-in to get CFIUS approval. And they were so confident in that they even had him open up a new office, because they were planning on the kind of business they were going to do as soon as CFIUS approved it.
Using dirt dug up and paid for by the RNC and George W. Bush supporters. This town would be on fire. Every reporter would be following around Karl Rove and George W. Bush all over town. Yet it's crickets from the media. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. I mean, I'm almost flabbergasted, because I thought at least there would be some ounce of credibility left, but there really is none.
And ultimately, Steele, again, unverified. If we look at the memo that came out of Chuck Grassley's committee earlier today, it actually goes on to say that Steele gathered much of his information from Russian government sources inside of Russia. So if I put the two memos together, the new one tonight, yours from Friday, Hillary Clinton paid for Russian propaganda, turned out to be lies, not verified, then used for a FISA warrant. And I'm like, not only was it paid for to manipulate and lie to the American people, but then to spy on an opposition party candidate. Sir, are there crimes committed here?
Well, you can't really make this up. I hope the listeners understood what you just said. We have a clear link to Russia. You have a campaign who hired a law firm, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired a foreign agent, who went and got information from the Russians on the other campaign. It seems like the counterintelligence investigation should have been opened up against the Hillary campaign when they got a hold of the dossier. Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's clear evidence of collusion, that the Democratic Party and the Hillary Clinton campaign colluded with the Russians.